Okay. So analysis, right? You do your examination, you pare down what it is you're looking at, and then you start actually trying to put together the story. And again, since this is a cycle, depending on where you are and the number of iterations you may have gone through the SEER, or at least the CEA portion of it, you may still have to do quite a bit. You may just get a small couple of tidbits to put together to get an idea of where to head next. Or this may be the part where you start piecing together actually what happened, the ingress step, maybe some lateral movement, and some staging, and then the exfiltration piece. You may be able to put it together during the analysis portion of this. And you're looking for context, as it says, of relevant questions posed by the case. This is where you're able to use your well-targeted questions and the effects or the information that you're targeting comes into play. So the bottom bullet there says the goals of analysis are to determine causes, effects, and actions associated with a security incident. Sometimes the causes part may be difficult to get at. You can usually see the effects for the most part, unless there's overt attempts to obfuscate what actually happened. Sometimes that's the case. But the analysis portion of it is really trying to get to the story behind all the pieces, all the facts. There's a fine line. Sometimes the investigative piece of it, if you will, like the legal team part of it, will actually work the storyline part. And then sometimes the technical team is who gets to deal with what happened. From a step-by-step within the network anyway, would probably be your technical team. But sometimes your insider threat, if you happen to have an insider threat that's causing the incident, sometimes you get to hear about how, they interacted with so-and-so and sent, so-and-so this picture or this whatever. And so you may not, or I should say the technical team may not be privy to all of the storyline. So sometimes that's the case where you just get, I won't say bits and pieces, but you get the technical piece of it within the network, and then other folks are dealing with HR, legal. Some of the other folks are dealing with the rest of the storyline to put this entire analysis together. And the reporting portion, obviously we do this the CEA portion so we can report on it, whether that's to press charges, take some action against them from an HR standpoint. But reporting is very, very important. And there's different levels of reports that you may be asked to create depending on your audience for an incident, right? So you have your overview, your executive summary type of report where you're targeting the senior management of your agency or your organization. So that'll have a different flavor, a different viewpoint, right? At that point, you're talking business and operations and what got affected in that way. And you may be using numbers in some points to show how much it costs and how much time, perhaps in man hours. But that'll be the incident itself will stay at a very high level. And then there's the technical report. And kind of goes without saying too much with a technical audience like yourself, but you want to be as detailed and as accurate as possible. If there are recommendations for remediation, configuration changes, all of that should go into a technical report to help with what's been discovered. And then there's a legal report or a report pointed more towards legal. This information will probably also be at a reasonably high level of explanation, but they will need the technical pieces to explain what was gathered, how it was gathered, the fact that the chain of custody, the repeatability, all of the stuff that we discussed in keeping something able to be used as evidence is described in the legal documents. So after you have your incident and after everybody does their thing, it would be a good idea to put together, and depending on what's required, the depth of that particular report may be different for each organization, but something that will help document the good things that happened, some of the things that didn't go so well, and the recommended changes or updates or improvements that can happen for your incident response plan and then your digital forensics procedures and checklists. Okay, so here's where I was talking about recommended changes or remediation. Things like specific configuration changes that can be made should be put into the report, more than likely the technical report, as I was saying. The actionable intelligence gained, this is something that should be shared with the security operations team, security operations center. If you're noticing that they're using a particular tool or they're taking advantage of a particular protocol, those folks should be the ones that should be made aware of that actionable intelligence. Sometimes it's they're stealing merger and acquisition information. Perhaps the legal and or financial folks should know about this so they can do something about it. And then the procedural and policy changes, those should be looked at after an event as well. So if anything does need changing or improving, that living document can be updated. And then, of course, there's like system updates, patches, new technologies can reduce the risk of something similar happening again. That should be well highlighted in the technical report. And it wouldn't hurt any even if that were put into, say, a upper management level. If you want to lobby for funds, for more training, for better equipment, perhaps you can show, and unfortunately it would be a gap that you would be identifying, but if it's something that can be improved upon, why not go ahead and put that in a report and make sure you get the right eyes on that so you can get some help. Okay, so integrating into incident response with the SEER, the collection, examination, and analysis and reporting. For collection, the forensic acquisition portion, right, is pretty much at the very beginning. You're going to be pulling volatile, non-volatile data, and you're going to be doing the interviews. So that's all collection. I didn't really mention that because from a digital forensic standpoint, it's not really super relevant. I guess you may still want to interview the folks who use the machines, run the machines, get an understanding of how they're used, that piece that you can't really get from just being inside the ones and the zeros. So that's important. The examination area, you'll be identifying relevant data and finding any additional indicators of compromise. That'll be probably right in the identification and detection portion, or shortly thereafter. You'll pull that data and you'll be looking at more. And like I said, these first few will be very much shorter circles, if you will. You'll get the initial information, and then you'll use that to immediately start to gather your next set of collection items. And then analysis, right? You'll be looking to determine the connections between the data and the evidence and the storyline. So this is later on in the incident response, honestly, until you start getting more information in to get the I don't want to say non-technical, but the not so much the ones and zeros portion of it. When they have the interviews with the other people, when they get the opportunity to talk with either legal and or HR, they'll be putting that information together. And if there's sign of actual malicious activity or intent, and again, the intent part is sometimes difficult to ascertain, much less prove. And then sometimes things that look rather malicious may not be very malicious at all. They had a situation, a person that I work with was stationed in Korea. they worked as part of the base IT organization, and they got a call to I believe it's their elementary school, and they seemed to think that there was something happening to one of their computers, and must be hacked. There was the mouse was working on its own a little bit, and there was some typing going on, and the words Afghanistan and Iraq and a few other like non-standard for an elementary school terms were being used. So they were like, well, there must be something weird going on. So they sent a crew over, and the school actually has a kind of an incident response forensics team, but their main team is actually stationed in Japan. So as I understand it, they were not able to get there very quickly, so they asked the base if they could take a look. And so my coworker actually went in and did a pull of the hard drive and the volatile the memory, and he kind of went through it and just knew, right, there's got to be something here. And he could just find absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. And so eventually they got to talking to the instructor, the teacher, and some of the students, and come to find out, one of the children had somehow accidentally turned on the text or the speech-to-text function on the key or on the system, and the microphone was built into the keyboard. And so kids talking around the actual machine itself, they might be talking about their parents deploying to Afghanistan or Iraq. Not such a crazy area or subject to be talking about when you're talking about kids whose parents are in the military. And that's what it ended up being was, the speech-to-text function was turned on, and it was just getting gibberish for most of it, but periodically it would get a few words. So despite the fact that, on the surface you look at something like that and you go, I bet there's something here, But it's almost too obvious, right? With like words like Iraq and Afghanistan, you're kind of like, this is almost like someone's playing with us. But come to find out, it was very benign, very, just an incidental action by a child that caused quite a few man-hours, as I understand it, for them looking at that. Somewhat unfortunate, but it could be just that. You have a situation in your organization, and you go at it, and it's looking very much like a true compromise or a really bad thing, and you get to the bottom of it, and that's the purpose of it, right? We get there, we ask the relevant questions, and we get to the answers. So, righty, and then assessing potential damage. Sometimes that's more than likely that'll be your stakeholders of the actual data or the device that got the damage. So that part of it will come out during the interviewing and communications with the stakeholders. And then the last part, the reporting, that all comes pretty much towards the end. Sometimes there's, the stakeholder communication will be during the actual event as much as possible, communicating with them to let them know where things stand and how things are going forward. But generally the major reporting will be done towards the end or at the very end of an event or an incident. And they'll offer up the improvements and hopefully if the eradication didn't work initially, there's going to be techniques and recommendations on how to do that, and then remediation actions.